Alright, in today's episode of Oracle Apex Fundamentals, we're diving into creating a form for the EditGrid table. I'll show you how to easily extract selected rows using JavaScript. In the navigation section, we'll ensure our app is ready to receive new data. When we launch the app, we'll see an interactive grid where we can make changes. But to make sure everything runs smoothly and new rows don't break any rules, we need to tweak the attributes of each column in the column section of the interactive grid area. By doing this, our table will be more flexible and meet our needs. Ready to see it in action? Let's start building that EditGrid table form in the third episode of Oracle Apex Fundamentals.
The aim of this workshop will be to create a form on the EditGrid table, and I will show how to extract selected rows in a table using JavaScript. I'll start by creating a new application. I will create a new page with an interactive grid and set the data source on a AMP table. I turn on editing option. In the navigation section, I make sure that the new row will be created in the application navigation. I select the primary key of the table and create the page. After starting the application, you will see an interactive grid table where you can make changes. However, in order for it to be fully functional and for new rows not to violate internal constraints, the attributes of individual columns must be changed. For this, I will go back to the development panel. I can change individual column attributes by clicking in a column section in the interactive grid region and selecting a column. The column attributes will appear on the right side of the panel. I am changing the inName column so that its value cannot be empty. To do this, I turn on value required. In the job column, I change its type to text field with autocomplete and paste the code that lists all jobs in the table into the automatic suggestion list. In the manager column, I change its type to pop-up list of values, and in the source of the list, I paste the code that will print the names of all people from the table. I change the hire date column so that its value cannot be empty and has an appropriate mask. The commission column should have the smallest and largest values. I will change the depth node column so that it cannot be empty and displays all departments from the depth table. I will also add some needed validations. The first validation is the requirement that the job column is not empty. To do this, I right-click on a job column and select Create Validation. I name the validation, select the type as column is not null, and enter the message that will be displayed in the event of an error. Another validation is ensuring that employee cannot be their own manager. To do this, I right-click on the Manager column and click Create Validation. A name validation and choose the type Expression. In the code field, I entered the condition that the manager's ID cannot be the same as the ID of the person being entered. I'm saving the page. This is what the final effect of the change table looks like. Now I will integrate the table with JavaScript in such a way that the ID values of the selected rows are stored in an item. I'm going back to the development panel. In the interactive grid region, I create a new item where I will store the IDs. I change its type to display only. I create a new dynamic action on a selected item that will confirm new data in it every time its value changes. I name the dynamic action and set a condition for change the selected item. Then in the true section, I change action to execute server code and enter the code as null. I add this desired item to items to submit. The next step is to create a dynamic action that will detect changes in the selection of individual rows in a table. I create an action on the interactive grid, name it, and change the event to selection change. Then, in true section, I change the action to execute JavaScript code, enter the code that collects the identifiers of all selected rows and enters them into the selected item. I save the page and check the result. A new item has appeared on the top of the page, containing the indexes of all selected rows. Now I will show you how to rename buttons in the EditGrid. I go to the development panel and click on the interactive grid report region. On the right side of the panel, I click Attributes, and in the Advanced section, I find JavaScript initialization code. I enter the code that changes the label of the buttons. In the running application, you can see that the button has changed its label.